Feng Shui is often introduced as a list of placements. Turn the bed, move the mirror, find a lucky direction, add an object. But walk through an actual home and the first questions are much less theatrical. Where does rain land? Which room overheats? What flashes across the bedroom at night? Can an older person cross the entrance safely? When something leaks, can anyone reach the part that failed? The words Feng Shui point to wind and water, yet the tradition is broader than ventilation and drainage. Qi has carried philosophical, temporal, directional, and bodily meanings. It should not be reduced to a modern engineering term. Classical practice also draws on yin-yang, the 5 phases, form, compass systems, and time. Those ideas cannot be translated one for one into lighting, temperature, or materials. Qi also does not have to become a mysterious force that excuses vague claims. In this conversation, it is a useful prompt. What is moving through a place? What gathers there? And how does that pattern affect ordinary life? Follow that path through a home, and a pattern begins to appear. Weather shapes the entrance. Sightlines affect privacy and attention. Daily routines expose awkward layouts, while repair reveals whether the place can age with any grace. The thread is Feng Shui, but the goal is not fear or fortune. It is a home that works with climate, supports the body, and remains understandable when time begins to leave marks. Start with the weather. Ideas such as sheltering wind and gathering qi can sound abstract. At building scale, they raise a practical question. Can air, sun, and rain be admitted, redirected, or slowed when conditions change? A storm makes the first test visible. Someone steps out of hard rain and pauses beneath the roof edge. Their clothes are wet, but the doorway remains sheltered. That modest overhang is creating a small weather buffer exactly where the building meets daily arrivals. It also changes how sunlight meets the building. A well-sized overhang can block harsh, high-angle summer sun, while still allowing lower winter light to enter. The useful depth depends on climate, orientation, and the way storms actually arrive. This is not a substitute for waterproofing, insulation, or drainage. Gutters still clog. Flashing still fails. Wind-driven rain can reach beneath the edge, so the wall and window details must handle what the overhang cannot stop. Simple design only stays simple when someone can inspect and repair it. The revealing moment is not a sunny real estate photo. It is the morning after bad weather. Look at the dry line beneath the roof, the splash marks near the wall, and where the runoff landed. That tells you whether the overhang is doing useful work or merely borrowing an old-fashioned look. Courtyards photograph beautifully at noon. The harder test comes after a storm, when leaves cover the drain, damp marks climb the wall, and the air has nowhere to move. Suddenly, that peaceful opening is managing light, heat, water, and debris all at once. Calling it an outdoor room misses half the story. Its proportions affect shade. Surface permeability changes how much water soaks in, while slope decides where runoff travels. Unshaded glass facing the sun can overheat nearby rooms, while deep shade can leave corners wet for days. The practical question is who can reach what? Can someone clear the drain without moving heavy furniture? Can the wall base be inspected? Is there enough room for plants to grow without swallowing the walkway? Maintenance is part of the design, not an afterthought. After the rain, airflow takes over. On a warm evening, open 2 windows and the whole apartment seems to exhale. Cooking heat disappears, the curtains lift, and the room becomes usable again. Try the same setup on a cold night, and the person near the doorway may feel a draft around their ankles. Cross-ventilation is not automatically good or bad. It is a tool that changes with temperature, wind direction, humidity, and where people sit. Comfort depends on control, not on keeping every opening permanently wide or permanently sealed. Operable sections, screens, shutters, and ordinary curtains can make a big difference. So can moving a chair out of the direct path. The useful question is not whether air travels across the room, but whether that movement can be adjusted when conditions change. A narrow gap between 2 towers can feel calm from a distance. Step into it on a windy day and the experience changes fast. Litter slides across the pavement, doors become difficult to hold, and pedestrians lean forward without thinking. The gap has not created supernatural force. Building height, orientation, corners, and pressure differences are shaping a small piece of local weather. Wind moving around a tall facade can accelerate through constricted areas or be pushed downward toward entrances and sidewalks. The effect is not constant. A passage that offers welcome airflow in summer may be miserable during a winter storm. One end may be sheltered while the opposite corner receives sudden gusts. A photograph cannot show that timing or variation. Older building types also used narrowness and elevation as climate tools. A narrow side passage in a hot, humid region can feel noticeably cooler at midday. Tall walls keep direct sun away, and openings at each end connect the passage to halls or internal courts. What looks like leftover space may be participating in the building's ventilation. The effect is more complex than narrower means faster wind. Shade lowers surface temperatures. Differences in pressure and heat can help move air through connected spaces. The alley works as part of a system, not as an isolated trick. Later changes can erase that role. Storage may block one end, while a later roof can seal the top. Poor drainage leaves damp walls and insects. A cool passage still needs cleaning, weather protection, and a clear route. During the rainy season, the ground may remain visibly wet while the main living floor of a raised house sits above it. Air can move underneath, and temporary water or damp soil does not immediately enter the occupied rooms. This approach developed with local climate, terrain, materials, and ways of living. In humid regions, elevation reduces direct contact with ground moisture. On sloping land, varied post heights can respond to the site without creating one large, level platform. Elevation also creates responsibilities. Posts and connections need inspection. Stairs affect everyday access. Fast floodwater and floating debris can still damage a structure. A traditional form is not an automatic modern flood safety certificate. The transferable lesson is not that every house should stand on stilts. It is that wet ground does not always have to be defeated with harder surfaces and tighter sealing. In the right place, allowing air and occasional water to pass beneath occupied space can be more realistic than designing as though the land will remain dry forever. Cold weather shifts the question from releasing heat to placing it where life happens. On a cold evening in northern China, daily life traditionally gathered around the Kang. People sat, ate, worked, received guests, and slept on one heated masonry platform. The entire room did not need to feel equally warm for the occupied zone to feel comfortable. The system stored heat from a connected flue and released it through a large surface. It organized both temperature and social life around the place where bodies spent time. That is a different goal from heating every cubic foot of air to the same setting. Traditional Kang systems also had serious limitations. Poor combustion, leaking flues, smoke, uneven temperatures, and inefficient fuel use could create health and safety problems. Preserving the spatial lesson does not require romanticizing the old technology. Touch a thick earthen wall at midday and it may not feel dramatically cool. Return after sunset and the wall may still be releasing heat stored earlier in the day. The heat has not vanished. The indoor temperature peak has been delayed. Rammed earth and other heavy materials can absorb substantial heat and release it over time. This thermal lag may reduce rapid indoor temperature swings, especially where days are hot and nights become noticeably cooler. The same mass can be less helpful when nights stay hot and the stored heat has nowhere to go. Moisture, insulation, surface protection, wall thickness, and construction quality also change performance. A natural material is not a climate strategy by itself. Follow the wind and rain toward the entrance. In Feng Shui, the door is often described as a place where qi enters. Before assigning a direction, it helps to notice what arrives there in physical and social terms: water, headlights, noise, views, deliveries, and people with different bodies. The smallest boundary may be directly underfoot. A raised threshold can keep rain outside right up until someone arrives with a stroller, a suitcase, or a walker. The threshold itself has not changed, the person using it has, and that completely changes the experience. Traditional thresholds had practical jobs. They helped separate clean interior floors from dust and surface water. They also marked a clear transition between public and private space. None of that makes the step effortless for everybody. The choice is not simply preserve it or remove it. A covered entry, a carefully placed drain, a gentle slope, or a level transition can protect the doorway while improving access. The whole entrance has to work together. Open a front gate and imagine seeing the entire living room in one straight line. Now, place a partial screen inside the entrance. The door still feels welcoming, but the view slows down and turns before reaching private life. Traditional Chinese screen walls are often surrounded by Feng Shui stories about blocking harmful influence. Their immediate spatial work is easier to observe. They interrupt direct sightlines, create a more gradual arrival, and in some layouts alter the way wind enters an open court. A modern home does not need a heavy replica. An offset entry, open lattice, half-height cabinet, or carefully placed planting can create the same pause. If the barrier becomes too solid, it may sacrifice daylight, circulation, and a sense of welcome. Privacy is not always a lock or a blank wall. Stand outside and notice how far the eye travels. Then look back from the main room and see what passing visitors can observe. A well-designed turn gives people time and privacy while allowing the entrance to remain open, legible, and easy to use. Beyond the gate, roads reveal different behavior after dark and after rain. Turn off the living room lights in a house facing a T-junction, and the wall may still flash every few seconds. Headlights travel straight through the front window as cars approach the intersection. That repeated burst of light can make the room feel exposed long after traffic quiets down. The road may send other things in the same direction. Drivers brake near the junction. Horns and engine noise may be heard most clearly near the turn. During heavy rain, the street slope may direct runoff toward the lowest driveway or entrance. A line on a map cannot tell you how severe any of this will be. Distance matters, so do speed, window height, barriers, planting, drainage, and the angle of approaching vehicles. Curtains may reduce glare, while traffic hazards or flooding may require changes to the road edge, drainage, or entrance. This is why a dramatic Feng Shui label should become a site visit, not a verdict. Check the view after dark, listen during rush hour, and look for watermarks after rain. Identify what is actually arriving before deciding what kind of protection the home needs. A home beside a curved road may feel ordinary in daylight. At night, turning headlights sweep across the windows in a wide arc. After heavy rain, runoff may follow the lowest edge of the road and reveal a second pattern that was invisible on the map. Some Feng Shui traditions give road curves an aggressive image. Everyday experience is more specific. Changing light, braking and acceleration, tire noise, vehicle paths, and water moving toward the lowest point. The curve itself is not a verdict. Slow traffic, generous setback, effective drainage, and a planted buffer can make the location quiet. A road farther away may still create trouble if its slope directs water toward the entrance. The experience of arrival also belongs to neighbors and the street. The final 10 steps home may happen outside the apartment. A broken hallway light hides the corner. Delivery boxes narrow the path. A stroller blocks an emergency cabinet. The private living room can be beautiful, but the arrival still feels neglected. The area outside the door is shared circulation, not bonus storage. Shoes, bicycles, cabinets, and packages may seem to occupy very little space. During a move, wheelchair passage, or an emergency, that small obstruction can matter a great deal. Shared space also depends on ordinary care. Someone reports the failed light. A wet floor is addressed before people slip. Late-night conversation does not wake the whole floor. These actions shape the quality of the hallway more than decorative rules do. A tropical downpour begins, yet pedestrians beneath an arcade keep moving without entering a shop. Rooms occupy the upper floor while the ground level gives the street a covered edge. That shade functions as part of the walking network. Continuity creates the real value. One awning offers a brief pause. A connected row of sheltered walkways supports older people, children, deliveries, and anyone arriving from public transport through heat or rain. The shared route can disappear, a little at a time. Merchandise, cafe tables, signs, steps, and parked scooters narrow the path. Broken paving, poor drainage, and dark sections at night can make a roofed walkway difficult to use. Once inside, light and sightlines keep moving. Mirrors and windows attract symbolic rules because they change what appears inside a room. Their daily influence begins with glare, surprise, privacy, and the distance the eye is allowed to travel. A mirror can intensify movement, while a lattice or translucent layer edits it. Walk toward the kitchen at night, and a figure suddenly appears at the end of the hall. For half a second, the body reacts before the mind recognizes its own reflection. The mirror has not captured any mysterious energy. It has simply placed movement where none was expected. Daylight creates a different version of the problem. A mirror opposite a window can reflect glare onto a screen or seating area. Near the front door, it may reflect every person passing in the corridor, making the interior feel busier and less private. Mirrors are useful when their job is clear. They can brighten a dark corner, support a daily routine, and make a narrow room feel less enclosed. The important question is what enters the reflection at different hours. At noon, sunlight passes through a lattice and breaks into moving fragments across the wall. Change the pattern, scale, and opening ratio, and both the shadow and room brightness change. The screen is filtering daylight. Traditional latticework does more than create a historic look. The size of openings, depth of the screen, orientation, and thickness of each piece can affect brightness, glare, privacy, and the connection to outside movement. More pattern is not automatically better. A reading area may need a more open screen. A west-facing window may benefit from stronger filtering. Dust, moisture, and the difficulty of cleaning also belong in the decision, especially when the pattern is intricate. Clear glass can place a sharp rectangle of sunlight across the floor. Pass the same light through a translucent layer, and the hard edge softens. The room remains bright, but glare and visual exposure change. Traditional paper windows worked with transmission rather than transparency. People could sense daylight, weather, and movement without seeing every exterior detail. The material spread light across a surface while providing a degree of privacy. Paper is not a direct replacement for modern glazing. Contemporary windows must address weather, insulation, fire, durability, and security. The transferable idea is that a window does not have to be perfectly clear to be useful. Frosted glass, fabric shades, and diffusing panels offer related choices. Even the shape of a window opening can guide daylight and frame attention. Some old windows appear modest from outside, then widen toward the room like a funnel. The opening may look uneven until you stand beside it and notice how the angled surfaces spread daylight beyond the immediate window edge. A window is more than a hole through a wall. Splayed sides can expand the field of view, spread daylight across more of the nearby interior, and under the right orientation help shade parts of the opening from direct sun. The result depends on wall depth, geometry, climate, and solar angle. Copying the shape as decoration does not guarantee the same daylight and shading behavior. A wide reveal also uses wall space, affects furniture placement, and must still be detailed for structure and weather protection. A small room may have one ordinary window, yet the seated view includes a distant roofline, moving branches, and a strip of sky that changes color every evening. Nothing has been added to the interior, but the room feels connected to a much larger world. Borrowed scenery is less about possessing a landscape than editing a sightline. The window frame selects part of the outside world. Furniture can preserve or block it. Standing and sitting reveal completely different layers of the view. The subject does not have to be a mountain or garden. An old brick wall, seasonal treetops, a bridge, or changing weather can give the interior depth and a sense of time. Privacy still matters. The view beyond the property line may also change. Size alone cannot guarantee a good view. An instant revelation cannot guarantee a good journey. A wall of glass can look spectacular in an empty apartment. Place the sofa, sit down, and the main view may be a parking lot while afternoon glare lands directly on the television. More visible area has not necessarily produced a better view. Window quality includes composition. Frames and surrounding wall act like a viewfinder, directing attention towards sky, trees, rooftops, or distant movement. The depth of the opening and peripheral visual information can also change how spacious the scene feels. Large windows offer real benefits, including daylight and a strong connection outside. They can also bring solar heat, winter heat loss, glare, privacy problems, difficult cleaning, and risks for birds. Small windows have their own costs when rooms become dark or disconnected. Some spaces reveal everything from the entrance. The photograph is complete, but there is little reason to move farther in. Others show only part of a path, a framed branch, or light around a corner. The area is not larger, yet the body wants to continue. Many classical Chinese gardens organize experience through touring rather than one fixed panorama. Walking, pausing, turning, and looking back allow scenes to appear in sequence. Openings, corridors, walls, and changes in level guide both movement and attention. Sequence should not become confusion. Exits must remain legible, routes safe, and essential destinations direct. A complicated detour is not automatically poetic, especially when it creates confusing or inaccessible routes. The goal is a clear journey with moments of gradual discovery. The same idea can work in a small home or public courtyard. An entry offers a place to arrive before the main room opens. A low wall reveals changing light after one turn. Good space does not need to explain itself at first glance. It provides orientation while leaving enough ahead to reward the next step. Then, notice what the body has been saying all along. A low beam, a restless bed, a crowded kitchen, or a bathroom that never dries can all be given dramatic labels. The body offers a calmer test. Posture, sleep, movement, temperature, and effort repeated every day. Beds and seats magnify problems because people remain there for hours. In a cafe, 2 tables may be equally empty, yet people keep choosing the one away from the low beam. No one measures the ceiling first. The body notices the darker strip overhead, the reduced headroom, and the feeling that something is hovering too close. That discomfort does not require a prediction about luck. A beam changes the perceived scale, shadow, lighting, and posture. When a bed, desk, or sofa sits directly beneath it, the effect lasts much longer than a quick walk through the room. Removing a structural beam is rarely a casual option, and covering it with an even lower ceiling may make the room feel tighter. Try changing the use instead. Move the seat, add soft side lighting, or place circulation and low storage below the beam. The useful test takes 10 minutes. Sit there, read something, and notice whether you lower your head or keep glancing upward. If you still cannot settle there, it is worth testing another layout. That is a practical spatial response, not evidence that the ceiling is controlling anyone's fate. A bedroom layout can look perfectly balanced at noon and become irritating after midnight. Hallway light shines on the pillow. An air vent blows across one shoulder. Anyone heading to the bathroom has to pass along the side of the bed. Traditional Feng Shui often pays attention to the relationship between the bed and the door. One practical reading is simple. People tend to relax when they can understand the entrance without lying directly in its busiest path. Windows add drafts, street noise, and early morning glare to the equation. Compass direction is only one small part of placement. Outlets, heating, vents, curtains, cabinet doors, and a clear route to stand up all matter every night. A theoretically ideal position is not useful if it blocks storage or creates a tripping hazard. Then follow the movement of a meal and the moisture left by a shower. 2 people cooking together can turn a calm kitchen into choreography. One person carries a hot pan while the other opens the dishwasher into the same narrow aisle. Their movements have simply been designed to collide. The old sink and stove debate becomes more useful when translated into water, heat, and working space. Splashing near hot oil is unpleasant. Washed vegetables need somewhere to drain. A pan leaving the burner needs a safe landing place. Follow one meal from beginning to end. Food moves from refrigerator to sink, then to a preparation surface, then to heat. Dishes and waste travel in the opposite direction. Missing counter space can create more trouble than the measured distance between two fixtures. An hour after the shower, the mirror is still fogged, the towel feels heavy, and the cabinet has a stale smell. Closing the bathroom door hides the scene, but it does not remove the moisture. Water vapor simply settles into grout, fabric, and cool corners. Drying time is a useful test. An exhaust fan can remove damp air only when replacement air can enter. A loud fan with a blocked grill or no clear air path may still move very little air. Surfaces matter too. Water left on the floor, cracked sealant, and cabinets pressed against a wet wall create places that stay damp. Constant wiping becomes an endless job when drainage and ventilation are not doing their share. Apparent extra space also carries hidden work. The day a balcony is enclosed, the living room seems to gain an extra room. Furniture moves outward, rain stays off the floor, and street dust becomes easier to control. Then summer arrives, and the glass enclosure may become uncomfortably hot. A balcony is more than spare floor area. It is a transition zone that receives sun, wind, rain, laundry, plants, and messy household tasks before they reach the interior. Enclosing it changes where all of those functions go. The new room brings new questions. How will the glass be shaded, and where will condensation collect in winter? Can every panel be cleaned safely? Any effect on drainage, structure, fire separation, or an emergency route depends on the building and local rules. A sock disappears under the bed. Reaching it means pulling out 6 storage boxes, moving a lamp, and covering the floor with things no one remembered owning. The space looked efficient until one small object revealed how much effort the arrangement required. Underbed storage can be valuable in a compact home. The problem begins when maximum capacity replaces access. Dust becomes hard to reach, dampness goes unnoticed, and rarely used belongings quietly claim space that could support a future layout change. Useful storage leaves a route for cleaning and retrieval. Boxes open without dismantling the room. Labels are visible. Frequently used items do not sit behind 3 layers of forgotten ones. If the bed needs repair or relocation, the process should not resemble moving day. A home lasts longer when seasons and routines are allowed to change it. A chair beside the window can be the best seat in January. Low afternoon sun warms the cushion and makes the room feel generous. By July, the same armrest may be hot to the touch, and no one wants to sit there. Seasonal living begins with routine, not a complete redesign. It can mean changing when shades close, which window opens first, where a work table sits, or whether a rug belongs in the room during humid weather. Many useful changes involve no new purchase. Move seating into summer shade and back toward winter sun. Give damp exterior walls more breathing room during the rainy season. Block a cold draft only when it becomes a problem instead of sealing every opening all year. During the day, one room stays open for work and meals. At night, a guest arrives and a folding screen gives one corner enough privacy to sleep. The next morning, the divider folds away, and the floor area returns to its usual role. A movable screen divides time as much as space. It can interrupt a sightline, create a background for a video call, or mark a temporary sleeping zone while blocking less light and requiring less construction than a wall. The room does not have to make one permanent decision. Flexibility has limits. A lightweight divider is not automatically soundproof or fire-rated. It should not block an exit, heater, sprinkler, or accessible route. An unstable screen in a narrow passage creates a new problem. A child's room can be fitted with perfect precision. A small bed in one recess, a desk fixed at today's height, and cabinets covering every remaining wall. A few years later, the child needs a larger bed, and the entire room behaves like one piece of furniture of the wrong size. Built-ins are not inherently wasteful. The risk comes from treating the current routine as permanent. Remote work, caregiving, new family members, changing mobility, and different appliances can all ask the room to perform another job. Adjustable shelves, independent furniture, spare outlets, and some uninterrupted wall area create options. Fixed elements can stay where needs are genuinely stable, while the rest of the room remains loose enough to evolve. Years later, maintenance becomes the real test. A favorable-looking room on handover day tells us very little about year 10. Long-term order depends on whether noise can be traced, moisture can leave, trees can be assessed, safety equipment can be reached, and damaged parts can be repaired without destroying everything around them. At night, two disturbances are especially hard to ignore: persistent sound and excessive light. At 2 in the morning, the room seems quiet, yet a soft hum keeps returning through the pillow. Sit up and it almost disappears. Lie down again and the bed frame seems to carry it back. That uneasy feeling may have a very ordinary source. Refrigerator compressors, ventilation fans, elevators, pumps, and distant traffic can produce low-frequency sound or vibration. It may not be loud enough to demand attention, but it can still make rest difficult because the sound never fully stops. Buying acoustic panels should not be the first move. Switch off equipment one item at a time. Listen from different corners. Touch the wall or furniture to see whether the vibration is traveling through the structure. Building-borne noise may require help from maintenance staff or an acoustic professional. A powerful white floodlight can make a front yard look like daytime, yet the first step beyond it may be difficult to see. When the fixture shines directly into the eyes, surrounding shadows appear darker. Light may spill into a neighbor's bedroom while useful parts of the path remain unevenly lit. Safety lighting is about placement, not maximum brightness. Locks, steps, turns, addresses, and faces need useful illumination. The bulb itself should not become the brightest object in the view. Shielding light downward often improves visibility while reducing spill. Controls matter as well. Motion sensors suit brief movement, but badly timed switching can be distracting. Mounting height, color, weather exposure, and maintenance all affect the result. No single fixture suits every yard. Then compare an honest repair with a cosmetic surface that traps the original problem. One floorboard is lighter than all the others, and a repair line is still visible around its edge. It can look like a flaw until the owner explains that a small leak damaged that section years ago. The board was replaced, the source was fixed, and the rest of the floor remained in service. Visible repair is not the same as neglect. Soft timber, active moisture, mold, or movement underfoot needs investigation. A color mismatch may simply show that a local problem was solved without discarding the whole surface. Repairable interiors are easier to care for over time. Individual boards can be changed. Standardized parts are easier to source later. A worn finish can be renewed. People are not forced to choose between total replacement and watching damage spread. When an old masonry wall begins to flake, the quickest cosmetic repair is to cover it with a hard, dense cement finish. The surface appears smooth for a season. Then damp marks return near the base, or move into the softer material beside the repair. Many traditional solid walls managed moisture through capillary movement and evaporation. Lime, mortars, plasters, and washes were often compatible with that behavior. A much denser layer can make drying more difficult and may shift damage into older brick or stone. Damp has many possible sources. Roof leaks, pipes, exterior drainage, condensation, and ground moisture require different responses. Lime is not a universal cure, and poor workmanship can harm a wall regardless of the material name. Trees and fire barriers show why benefits, risks, and maintenance belong in the same decision. On a hot afternoon, a wall shaded by a mature tree feels warm. The exposed wall beside it can feel hot to the touch. That canopy is performing daily work, reducing direct sun, cooling the approach, and creating a place where people are willing to pause. Concerns about a tree near a building can be real. Branches may touch the roof, leaves may block gutters, roots may lift paving, enter damaged drains, or affect certain foundations. The level of risk depends on species, soil, distance, health, and construction. Removal takes a day. Replacing the shade and habitat of an established canopy takes years. A better sequence is assessment first, then targeted pruning, drainage work, root zone protection, monitoring, or removal when the evidence supports it. Put benefits and risks on the same page. Cooling and shelter are real services. Dead limbs and potential structural damage are real concerns. Treating a tree as infrastructure encourages evidence instead of reflex. An established tree deserves careful judgment, not an automatic answer. The stepped gables of Huizhou architecture create one of the most recognizable rooflines in China. Their silhouette is elegant, but the original problem was urgent. Dense groups of timber buildings could allow one fire to spread through many homes. These walls rose above the roof and acted as fire-separating barriers between adjoining structures. In settlements with limited land and closely packed combustible construction, slowing flame and flying embers was a practical community concern. Copying the outline onto a modern building does not reproduce that protection. Materials, tested fire resistance, connections, roof construction, openings, and current codes determine performance. A decorative gable cannot stand in for a compliant firewall system. This is a useful way to read traditional form. Ask what risk the shape was managing before treating it as a style. The horsehead wall remains beautiful, but it was built to slow fire between neighboring homes. Remembering that function keeps the architecture connected to fire safety, rather than reducing it to a regional logo. The enormous metal vats outside palace buildings can look purely ceremonial. Historically, they held water close to highly combustible timber halls so that people could respond quickly when fire appeared. Their value depended on readiness, not symbolism alone. The vessels known as dorsies followed a maintenance routine. Water had to be replenished. Someone had to watch the containers. In freezing weather, the supply had to be kept from turning into ice. Without that labor, a monumental object became an empty shell. This is not a reason to replace modern fire protection with a decorative water tub. Alarms, extinguishers, hydrants, sprinklers, and escape routes have tested requirements. Historical equipment belonged to a very different system. At the largest and smallest scales, a bridge, a timber joint, and an access panel all preserve future options. Rain begins halfway across a covered bridge, and no one has to hurry. A traveler sets down a load, children watch the river, and neighbors continue a conversation on the bench. The bridge still carries people across water, but it also becomes a shared room. Dong wind and rain bridges combine crossing, corridor, shelter, and pavilion. Roofs provide shade and weather protection. Railings become seats. A route between two banks also supports meeting, waiting, resting, and community life. The value does not come from copying the picturesque roof everywhere. Timber maintenance, river conditions, craft knowledge, structural safety, and actual public use all matter. If benches become display pieces, and local people are displaced by tourism, its role in daily community life begins to disappear. Modern circulation spaces are often designed only to keep people moving. Station exits, walkways, and community entrances. The bridge asks a better question. Can someone pause safely along the way? When a route offers shelter, a place to sit, and room for an unplanned encounter, infrastructure starts supporting relationships as well as movement. Videos of traditional joinery often celebrate one line, not a single nail. That makes a good demonstration, but it misses the harder achievement. A skilled carpenter understands how each timber carries force, how the joint fits, and where to look when movement appears. Traditional frames used prepared components assembled on site. Joints concentrated structural knowledge in carefully shaped connections and allowed timber to respond to some movement. Performance came from geometry, material selection, proportion, and craft, not from two pieces of wood magically locking together. Mortise and tenon joints can loosen, split, decay, or pull apart. Moisture, insects, and repeated loading still matter. treating nail-free construction as indestructible erases the need for inspection and skilled repair. The modern lesson is broader than copying a historic joint. Connections should be understandable and reachable. Fasteners can be removed. Damaged parts can be replaced without destroying the whole object. The smartest connection is not the one that wins a purity contest. It is the one that still allows a future person to diagnose, separate, repair, and reassemble the parts. Useful material can remain in service. A small pipe connection begins to leak behind a tiled wall. The repair itself might take minutes, but the access point was covered during renovation. Now a perfectly good section of finish has to be broken simply to reach the part. Homes contain many components that will eventually need attention. Valves, filters, drains, electrical connections, pumps, and appliance parts. Hiding them neatly on day one is easy. Keeping them safely reachable 10 years later requires planning. A modest access panel, clear label, and enough working space can save an entire wall. The location should also allow someone to see, use tools, and isolate the system without balancing in an unsafe position. An access panel rarely becomes the visual highlight of a room, and that is fine. It represents preparation for inevitable wear. Durable design does not assume that nothing will ever break. It allows a small problem to remain small. When maintenance can happen without demolition, materials last longer, repairs cost less, and the home becomes easier to maintain. After this walk, familiar Feng Shui phrases begin to sound different. Sheltering wind does not mean sealing every opening. Gathering qi does not mean filling a room with objects. Receiving qi at the door means creating an arrival the household can actually absorb light without glare, air without a constant draft, access without a balancing act, and contact with neighbors without surrendering privacy. Feng Shui remains a traditional system with its own history, symbols, compass methods, and ideas about time. It would be careless to claim that all of it is simply building science in disguise. Yet its habit of reading relationships still has modern force. A room is connected to weather, a repair is connected to future waste, a private doorway is connected to a shared corridor. Comfort today is connected to maintenance years from now. That is why useful Feng Shui advice should reduce fuss instead of multiplying it. Observe before declaring. Trace the light, sound, wind, water, and movement that are actually present. Repair what can remain in service. Leave access where something will eventually need care. Give trees room to grow, water somewhere to go, and households permission to change their layout. A home does not become supportive because anxiety has filled every corner. It becomes supportive when people can understand it, adjust it, and keep living there without fighting the place every day.